What movie ducked you up mentally? I watched Blair Witch in my early teens with no concept of what documentary or found footage movie was. In my mind it was all real, the last scene was golden. I had a similar experience. I was a naive teen and thought it was all real. I was in tears and shaking with fear in the theater. My best friend and I couldn't sleep that night. My dad, who drove us to and from the theater, knew we were absolutely terrified but didn't tell us quite yet it wasn't real. Instead, he put a pile of rocks outside my bedroom door for us to find the next morning, and we both ran screaming and crying out of the house. Good times. Years later I learned to appreciate it, but I didn't speak to him for days. Edit. My dad will be absolutely thrilled that my highest rated comment is about him successfully terrorizing me. LOL, I can't wait to tell him. Thanks guys. Edit, gold. I'll take it, although my dad deserves all the credit. Thank you, awesome stranger. I was also in my early teens when that came out, and I had randomly caught on TV months earlier the fake documentary that they made, Curse of the Blair Witch. It was a brilliant marketing ploy in retrospect. Way before the movie, they released an hour-long TV show on the Sci-Fi Channel documenting the legend of the Blair Witch like it was a real thing. It seemed exactly like any of these old shows where people talk about Bigfoot or the Jersey Devil or whatever. I completely believed it was a real thing. At the very end of the TV show, they mentioned that 3 college kids had gone out into the woods to make a documentary about the Blair Witch, but that they went missing. They then said that months after they went missing, their footage had been found in some old ruins. With the permission of the family, the film was being cut together and released in theaters to kind of be the documentary the students were trying to make. So, I went to the Blair Witch Project thinking that I was watching a documentary from film by people who went missing. At like 13 to 14, it was terrifying. I absolutely believed it was real. It was only when I saw the actors being interviewed on TV a couple months later that I found out it was fake. Good Will Hunting. The part where Robin Williams explains to Matt Damon that although he knows almost everything, he will never know what it's like to look in the eyes of your best friend as he's dying in war, or what it's like to lose a wife to cancer. Return to Oz. The Disney sequel to The Wizard of Oz. This movie is targeted at children. This movie is ducked up. It starts with Dorothy getting electroshocks in a Bedlam asylum because no one believed in her stories about Oz. Then she returned to Oz, and then she encountered truly horrific monsters like the Wheelers, Duck the Wheelers, and the big bad is switching heads like you switch dresses and all the heads are alive, and how my god, how is this movie targeted at children? Add that to the fact that you aren't really 100% sure if it actually happened or if it's all in Dorothy's head. Kids' movies in the 80s didn't duck around. Fire in the Sky. I saw this when I was 8 or 9. I walked into my aunt's room during the operating scene. Anything and everything that dealt with aliens freaked me out. When Unsolved Mysteries and the X-Files theme songs came on, I would lose my mind and become really scared. Saving Private Ryan. As a child, my parents would only allow me to watch Disney movies, and so when everyone was out of the house one night, since they were at my cousin's house was right next door, so they usually always left me alone for a bit. I turned on the TV and Saving Private Ryan came on, thought it was still a Disney movie and proceeded to watch it. Jesus duck, my tiny brain wasn't ready for that trauma. Edit. I read almost every one of the comments and want to thank all of you for sharing your experience and sharing your own stories. Very interesting to see other people's views on stuff like this. Yes. This. There is a scene where they take sanctuary in a church and one of the soldiers just starts to have a mental breakdown and talks about how he misses his mom. She worked late and would come in to check if he was asleep. He would pretend so he wouldn't be bothered, and he now regrets not waking up, turning around and telling his mom "I love you" just one more time than he did. This hit me hard because my mom was going through breast cancer treatment and it hit me on a deep emotional level. What's eating Gilbert Grape? I grew up in a very similar situation, like, spookily similar, just a lot less good looking. My mother was overweight and I just knew she was gonna die in our old house like that. Scared the stuff out of me. Requiem for a Dream. Still get bothered by some of the scenes in that. Story time. When I was 14-15, my counselors at sleepaway camp told us about this movie and said we would never see anything like it again. They hyped it up for weeks. One night, all 20 of us gather in a small room with probably a 30 TV. We were all ducking horrified as high school freshmen. Only good thing to come out of the movie was my thought, I'm never gonna try heroin ever. Then the next week, our counselors go, we have another movie by the same director that is equally as ducked, wanna watch it? Second big mistake. Watching Pi. Watership Down. My parents thought it's just a cartoon movie, surely fits for an 7-year-old. I still don't want to watch the movie again, and I'm turning 29 next Sunday. I remember watching Hotel Rwanda as a freshman at my private high school. Embarrassed me because I realized the world wasn't even close to the way I thought it was. We were watching that in history class. One kid, one of the classic school stuff head bully types, muttered under his breath, "Damn NRs deserve to die." The teacher overheard, and holy ducking stuff, that was the angriest I have ever seen another person. Kid was only saved from permanent expulsion because we were his last chance school. The fourth kind. 4 weeks after watching this, it seemed like I would always wake up at exactly 3:33 a.m. and I was deathly afraid to be outside at night. Flowers in the Attic. I was terrified of my mother poisoning me growing up. Ducked up stuff. Life is Beautiful. Not a movie, but Black Mirror's Be Right Back episode. I lost my wife in 2011. And I had to stop watching that episode. Black Mirror as a whole, many episodes, were very disturbing and stayed with me. I remember the one where a guy's consciousness was trapped in a device and time passed at 1/10,000 the rate of the real world. He was basically stuck in a featureless room. Then somebody got pissed at him and left it switched on over a long weekend. Dear Zachary. If documentaries count. Edit. Anyone curious about watching it, I strongly urge you not to read any background or synopsis before doing so. Part of the power of this doco is the way the story unravels without any prior knowledge. 7. It wouldn't duck me up now at 40 years old, but when I watched it at 18, it left me silent and terrified for hours afterwards. That scene where they're all standing around the emaciated guy tied to the bed and he begins coughing got me good. Apparently he was played by a real actor who'd got themselves down to an anorexic weight level just for the part. We need to talk about Kevin. Jesus, that movie. I've read the book, it's long and slow, but the mother narrates it. It's actually told through letters she's writing to her husband, and you can just feel the pain she's been through. It's a very disturbing but sad book. The book has more ambiguity about Kevin's motivations and over-empathizes with the mother, because of the first-person narrative, so it makes you think about the story over and over, whereas the movie has to spell it out for you. I liked the movie more as an artistic film, but I loved the book for forcing me to re-examine the story over and over outside of my bias. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I know it's not a movie that would duck anyone's mind up, but to me it's very relatable and resonates with my life, so I found it very disturbing. When it comes to love, we all can commit the same mistakes over and over again and still want the same suffering, even if the happiness that it brings is just a few % when compared with the suffering. If given chance, we will destroy our lives for that one person, even if we know nothing good is ever going to come. Her. Again, about relationships, it left a void in my mind. Very disturbing and depressing movie to me. Grave of the Fireflies. Best movie I'll never watch again. I was looking for someone to mention this one. They released it at one of the theaters in town for a special Ghibli movie week. Never had watched it before but heard good things about it. Went in to go watch it, and not even 5 minutes in it pulls on my heartstrings so hard. During the whole movie I held on to a glimpse of hope, but only to be crushed mercilessly at the end. It did an amazing job at portraying the horrors of war in an animated setting. The worst part is that it's autobiographical. In reality, the brother lives and goes on to write the book the movie is based on. He kills the character of himself at the end because he's ashamed to still be alive. He had never forgiven himself for surviving. I saw this movie in college 12 years ago, and to this day, I still can't think of the scene with the candy without fighting back tears.